Have you ever noticed how two songs from two different genres can actually make you feel same feeling? There's many bands that are not actually in the same genre, but share similar aesthetics, and they're enjoyed by the same people. There isn't really a specific name for this, but let's call it Nostalgiacore, since it heavily leans on aesthetics and vibes. Nostalgiacore usually sounds somewhat hazy, ethereal, dreamy, and relatable. Often bands that fit into this description are considered emo, garage rock, post-punk, shoegaze, screamo, or other DIY music genres. Since Nostalgiacore is an umbrella term for many different bands in different genres, many of the bands often sound very different. For example, Title Fight sounds very different from Surf Curse. Girl in Red sounds very different from Worst Party Ever. And Fleshwater sounds very different from Glitterer. But honestly, it is more about the aesthetics and less about any specific genre of music. And that's why many artists from pop culture could arguably fit into Nostalgiacore as well. Artists such as Phoebe Bridgers, Lana Del Rey, or Novo Amor, just to name a few, are often associated with the same aesthetics and melancholic energy. Bands such as Sonic Youth and the Jesus and the Mary Chain started experimenting with rock music in the 1980s, developing the sound that would later become shoegaze. On 1991, a group called My Bloody Valentine released their debut album Loveless, which became considered the first shoegaze album of all time. The same year, a group called Fugazi from the DC hardcore punk scene started writing about their emotions and struggles, creating what we call emotional hardcore today. Around the same time, grunge was getting bigger by the day, with bands such as Pearl Jam and Nirvana leading the way. All these genres that got started in the early 90s evolved over the years and influenced not only young musicians in the DIY scenes, but also millions of songwriters in the pop culture. Decade after Fugazi started playing emotional hardcore, the genre developed to many new subgenres. Some people started aggressive screamo and power violence bands, when other people started mixing emotional hardcore with alternative rock and even with acoustic guitars. This made emo receive more mainstream appeal, after bands such as Sunny Day Real Estate and Jimmy Eat World started building momentum in the early 2000s. All these alternative bands in the early 2000s were heavily influenced by emotional hardcore, grunge, and shoegaze. Nostalgiacore did not anyhow become a thing before 2010s, when the millennials grew up and started missing the good old times. During the 2000s, internet took the world in its grasp. Streaming music made listening and finding new bands much more accessible than ever before. Teens in early 2000s found shoegaze and alternative rock mainly from various internet blogs, alternative magazines, Guitar Hero and EA Sports games, and from MTV television channel. In the 2010s, tons of mainstream artists started making moody rock music such as Tame Impala, My Chemical Romance, and Arctic Monkeys. Instead of burning CDs at home, teens started downloading music from the internet to their iPads and Walkmans, and later on, they could even start listening songs from applications within their smartphones. The future of music was completely changed with the rise of the internet era. Around 2016, emo music and its melancholic aesthetics became so strong that many rappers started mixing it to their culture. Hundreds of artists such as Lil Peep, Lil Uzi Vert, and Post Malone created a whole new genre called emo rap. This new style of rap music heavily leaned on the aesthetics of earlier emo music. With the rise of visual platforms such as Tumblr and Myspace, the aesthetics and visual identity of all these genres became almost as important as the music itself. People started posting on their Tumblr pages about their outfits, edgy lyrics from the bands they listened to, pictures of cool tattoos, classic album covers, and much more. This golden era of microblogging was one of the most important factors in the immersion of fashion and alternative music. In the current year of 2024, the nostalgia to everything from 90s and early 2000s is an all-time high. Millennials who are now adults can be found spending hundreds of dollars to see all their favorite bands in huge emo revival festivals, while the Generation Z are obsessed with Y2K fashion, Hello Kitty, and the early 2000s digicams. Nostalgiacore is alive and well, new bands popping up constantly. Platforms such as Instagram and TikTok made finding and sharing new music much easier than ever before. Some bands that have stood out lately after going viral on TikTok are Thank You, I'm Sorry, Quanic, Sojira, and Flying Fish. These all represent the new generation of musicians that has taken tons of influence from the previous decades of alternative music. The younger generation of music enjoyers do not like only shoegaze and emo, but also post-punk, wave, rap, hyperpop, and plenty other subgenres. While there is no specific genre that would bring all of these music fans from the older and younger generation together, it is time to start talking about the era of nostalgia. Nostalgia seems to be the one thing that unites the 18-year-olds with obsession to TikTok and Deftones together with the elder emos who went to see Nirvana and Fugazi live in 1991. Long story short, Nostalgiacore seems to be all about the community and culture around it, instead of the music itself. Nostalgia is the perfect word to capture the heart of the alternative music culture of today.